Hey everybody, welcome to the Moonello Show. I'm Jason, this is that guy.
Matt,
Yeah, that guy. How's it going? Today we got some pretty cool stuff. We're going to talk about the vital role of software maintenance in business success.
Everybody's favorite topic.
Yeah, I love
everybody's favorite topic.
Maintaining things.
Yep.
Asana tickets pouring through. It's just the best.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, there's a lot more to maintenance, which we'll all go into. We'll go into all the different aspects about it. How to think of it as not just maintenance. How really maintenance about it is really the smallest piece about it. But really it's a lot more in detail. So really it just, revolves around just you've got a software application or as simple as a website. You've got a mobile app, you've got something running in the cloud, you've got an internal business tool, or you've got something out there in the public that people download onto their phones. It's how do you make it better? How do you optimize it? How do you make iterative changes faster? How do you maintain the code? That's what really it's all about. There's a stigma around, oh, it's just maintenance, whatever, I don't want to do that. But really, there's a lot more to it, a lot more benefits to a business to go, to get involved in that.
Yeah, I think I'll say this every time we talk about maintenance, but like software development doesn't end at deployment. Like there's so much more to the tail half and the last half of that, and we'll kind of get into that soon. First, let's kind of talk about like what's happening around the world, around tech.
Yeah.
I don't know. So Microsoft is enabling more AI into their platform with a Copilot.
Yeah,
I think you
Copilot.
looked some up this. What is that? What is that, like the Bing thing or like Bing ChatGPT thing, or is it something different?
Yeah, they're basically integrating, the beauty of ChatGPT, the beauty of OpenAI into more of their tools. Really, this particular Copilot is really around a few of their power apps, which have to do with like sales and
like the BI stuff.
Yeah, business intelligence type stuff. Yep.
Gotcha. That's kind of cool. That's that's really interesting. I'd be surprised if I didn't see more of the bigger tech companies doing stuff like that too, and advertising it pretty heavily with their platforms.
Yep.
Yeah. I wonder what like Google is doing on that front. Maybe we can look that up later.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Yeah.
Interesting. But I could see, like you're seeing it right now with autofill technologies and like, finish my sentence stuff. Google does a little bit of that now, but probably not with AI, but now everybody's getting into it. Can you imagine writing a Word document and as you're typing stuff out and start getting suggestions of like it knows what you have said previously, and now it's like, hey, you should probably talk about this in your next paragraph, or this is your next headline, or
I feel like email is basically there. I mean, I know in Gmail when I'm, and this is likely because we're workspace users and our through our business.
Yeah.
It's already suggesting to finish my sentence, and most of the time it's like, oh yeah, that's what I wanted to say, and you just hit tab, and it just fills it in for you.
How much of that is AI, and how much of it is just like they've got enough data that they know when these sequence of words happens to do something else?
Right. Like is it AI just period, or is it AI plus my writing style? And it knows the types of emails that I write and what I might want to say, because typically it's, oh yeah, that's how I wanted to finish that sentence. It's never like, oh, that's not where I wanted this sentence to go.
Yeah, because this predictive stuff with Google, specifically with Gmail, it's been there for years. Like it's already been there well before the whole AI talk really like reared its head as of recently. So I wonder if that's like, that wasn't AI, that was something different. Some other like predictive text that you would find in like a your Android Messenger or Apple Messenger chat or something like that, right? And that now they're like really going to start implementing AI to, instead of finishing your sentence, just rewrite that whole paragraph.
Yeah, it could almost. I mean, especially if you've got like a thread going on with somebody, or maybe a prospective lead, or maybe like a relative you're trying to make plans for the summer, right? And it could almost like read the thread what's going on and almost produce, here's what your reply should be, or or here's a potential reply.
Grandma asked you when you're available in the next couple of months, and it checks your calendar or does all that whole type of stuff. That's fun.
Yep. And Best Buy are, everyone's favorite electronics store. They come out with a couple interesting things. The Geek Squad that fixes your computer. They could come to you and fix your computer or your electronics, right? They're getting into the business of installing medical devices at homes, which is great.
Yeah, that's interesting though.
Yeah.
I don't know how to feel about that because like I don't know. It at the end of the day, it's all like tech, and they should be trained on it and that sort of thing. So like the expectation is the thing they want to do, but there's a difference between like having Geek Squad fix your computer that you go on to like send emails and play video games, and installing this device where if it fails, you die.
Right.
Big differences
In
those outcomes, right? So like,
yeah.
I don't know. I think I'd like to see where like the success rate is before
Yeah, because
asking them to do that.
My father has had a couple kidney transplants, and he's done in-home, into a facility dialysis, and he's done it in-home. And I know he's had a dialysis machine in his house, but I believe it was obviously installed and hooked up by a trained nurse. So I assume that people of the Geek Squad are either going to need to be medically trained to do that, or nurses are going to become part of the Geek Squad, and they are the ones that go out and do the.
So either nurses get A+ certification, or Geek Squad members get medical training.
Yeah, get their doctorate or whatever they need to, whatever they need to. But I think I don't
Interesting.
know. I think it's great. I mean, anyway, we can help people that need the help, who might not be able to set it up themselves, or if it's a three weeks until a nurse can become available to come install it, but the Geek Squad can come today at 4 p.m. I mean, we're helping people out. That's great.
Then usually the sooner people can get home and comfortable, like the quicker their recovery gets in those situations. So I can see the benefit of that for sure.
Right.
That'd be pretty cool.
Right. And another thing Best Buy announced is that they're coming out with their own ad platform, which is pretty cool, or at least talking about coming out with their own ad platform.
So to fight Google and Amazon and all that. Wow.
I mean, why not? I mean, you've got the platform, you've got, millions of visits on your website every month. People are coming to your site to buy electronics, and why not allow, companies to, run ads on their electronic products within your, right?
Oh, right. Like within Best Buy itself.
Yeah, I mean, it might be its ad platform might be available under other domains, but I believe it's, focused on having it under BestBuy.com.
Yeah.
Or BestBuy.com proper. Or Best Buy proper. So, yeah.
When's the Moonello ad platform?
It's already out.
Oh, it's already out?
Yeah, we're maintaining it.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Like right now?
Yeah, like right now.
Welcome to the ad platform.
Yeah, it's up already, yeah.
Nice. And then kind of finally, Spotify is redesigning their core home screen to make it easier for users to find music.
Yeah.
I didn't look too much into this. So like, what have they changed? Like, what is different about it?
I'm not sure. I'm not a huge Spotify user. I'm more of a YouTube music user.
Got it. Yeah, me too.
But I know millions of people use Spotify, and for them to change their homepage, right, their home screen in their app, that's a big deal. They've obviously listened to users. They've obviously done audits on, we're getting into what we're going to be talking about. They've obviously done audits on what's going on. They've obviously, done things to realize they need a project to redo their home screen.
Yeah.
And maybe there weren't problems, but maybe, they've realized some tweaks they can make, and maybe they've done some A/B testing.
Yeah. I mean, they're kind of a leader in their space. Like everybody, when you think of a music app, like obviously you could think of Apple, iTunes, or whatever it's called nowadays. Not an Apple user, sorry.
Music or
Apple
something.
Music. But Spotify is probably that first non-platform specific thing that you think of.
Yep.
So for them to be changing stuff, like they must have noticed or have learned something, or
People's
want
habit.
to be some form of different or innovative.
People's habits change over time.
I wonder if this like hints at a greater change to their platform.
Maybe.
Like it's just kind of a first step to something deeper.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
Interesting.
It's a good question.
Spotify people, let us know.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is clearly a good intro into, what we're going to be discussing today, which is maintenance, but we really like to call it optimization, which is kind of what we push for in our business and with our clients. You know, even one massive project that we have that's ongoing is just flat out maintaining and optimizing, tweaking, auditing, you know, a huge pool of websites all over the world, actually, for one particular client. So it's worth it to them. It's worth it to a lot of companies. We'll get into why it's worth it and the ones that are like really doing a good job at it. So
yeah. So like let's think about what software maintenance is first and kind of define it in a third grade reading level terms.
Sure.
Right. So like it's like maintaining your car.
Yep.
You need your car to operate, but in order for that to operate, you need to do certain things. You need to change your oil. You need to get it checked up. You need to make sure that all the nuts and bolts are tightened and screwed, and
Yep.
you know it's got to have gas and wind wiper fluid and like air pressure right in the tires, and make sure the tread's fine and that all that sort of stuff. Any of that breaks down, and suddenly like core functions or you know auxiliary functions of your car just kind of break down. Very similar on the software side.
Yep.
You can have a product. It's not immune. It's not infinity. Something is going to happen to it eventually. That change and affect its quality, and and you need to be prepared for that.
Yep. Yeah, I mean it literally is as simple as that. It's as simple as things we do to maintain our cars, and other things we do to maintain our cars that really don't have to do with the performance of the vehicle, like cleaning the inside, getting the trash out from time to time. Does that really help the performance of the vehicle? No. People say when you run a car through a car wash, it glides through the air better, it has better aerodynamics.
Well, when you remove trash from the car, it lightens the load, and it improves the fuel efficiency by that much.
Right, but there's so many other things that go into maintaining something that isn't like directly tied to, because if I don't put gas in my truck, like it's going to be stuck on the side of the road.
Right. But it won't explode.
But it won't explode.
Yeah, but you don't put windshield wiper fluid in.
Right.
It's not going to prevent you from making left turns.
Right.
Which is probably a very good feature to have.
Yes. And windshield washer fluid, right?
But it will present other dangers when, for example, you're on the highway and you get sprayed with a bunch of mud from a big old truck.
Yep.
You don't have the windshield wiper fluid in there. Suddenly, the operation of your vehicle does stop. So all of those big things and little things really need to be paid attention to.
Right. And the question becomes if something doesn't get maintained or cleaned up, or if it's not looked at over a period of time, does that thing become broken? Right? Or is it my fault for not maintaining? Like had someone been maintaining it, then it would have been fine.
Is it GM's fault that happened?
Right.
Or is it the user who decided not to read the manual and
right? Or is it no good anymore? Yeah. Or is it the wonderful people on the production line that built it? Is it their fault?
And then even continuing with that analogy, if you don't continuously try to understand what's going on with your vehicle and pay attention to it, things can happen behind the scenes without you knowing that they're happening behind the scenes, without presenting an ugly head, and then suddenly it causes an effect somewhere else in the whole system that you don't even realize.
Yeah, there's a major reason.
Chasing tails.
There's a major reason why there's a dashboard in vehicles.
Yeah.
And there's an instrument panel, and that instrument panel provides vital information into what's going on with the vehicle. Used to be the check engine light, but now there's flat out computer screens in vehicles that indicate, hey, left rear tire is down by 1% of pressure than all the other three. Right.
Remember you had to manually take your little pressure gauge thing and plug it in.
Oh yeah, and see them. Yeah.
And it would pop out, and now you just have numbers on a screen telling you what's going on.
Right.
That's crazy. Which also those are very expensive to replace. I wouldn't suggest it. The little sensors that sense the tire pressure. Yeah. They're pretty ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. So. Moving on to the other topics like benefits of the whole topic that we're talking about related to software maintenance. So let's get into maybe some of the benefits. We kind of riffed on a few here, but when it comes to software, right, the big thing, especially if you have an app that's running out there, you've got an internal business tool that's got some, important business intelligence data into it, is, ensuring that it's got improved security, making sure over time that there aren't security leaks that are happening, there aren't vulnerabilities that are approaching into the system, making sure you've got, really good security, and then of course enhanced performance. So making sure that your software is actually running at peak performance, at all times. So
Yeah.
those are two pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't care about those things, that's when you get situations where people's credit card information gets stolen, or there are other pieces of their identity, and then
Right.
then
Data
it
leaks.
doesn't matter if it was the developer that caused the problem, or if it was you not paying attention to your software that caused the problem. It's on the person who owns the software.
Yep.
You are culpable for all of
Yep.
that data loss. So
Yeah, we've all heard, data breaches and,
yeah, I mean,
leaks.
telecom companies have it every other week. They're getting hacked
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form. And I mean, you can't stop it all from
Right.
happening. Hackers will beat
Right.
you.
It's all continuous, right? Once
Yeah.
once you put a database out there on the world, that's you can have it behind a VPN and a firewall, but there's always not
Yeah.
always, but there's ways to lock things down that are not even accessible by the public. But if you leave a door open in some way, shape, or form, even if that door is pretty solid, right, it's still going to get knocked down and knocked down and knocked down and knocked down, and finally at some point something's going to open up. And right.
So the principle is you need to pay attention to the point where, you care about all of it, but would you rather it just be like the expert hackers that are getting that data, or random dudes in their basement who have purchased some strange software that, if you were paying attention to things, you
Yep.
would know that this is your systems would know that this is a common software that's used for
Yep.
this thing, and you'd be able to prevent those breaches and those things from
Right.
happening. So that's what
Right.
maintenance helps you do.
Maintenance also, a big benefit is a better user experience. So if you're paying attention to how your software is being used and how it's being accessed and utilized, you can clearly tweak things and change things to make a better experience. If you realize people are dropping off at a specific point in a checkout experience, or people are trying to download a document that just isn't on the server, the link is broken, people aren't getting it, you notice that right away, fix it, right? Bam, providing a better user experience immediately. Imagine if you just turned a blind eye and didn't even pay attention, and everyone's trying to download this document, and after a while, people are done.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, probably the biggest stuff in the news lately is all the Twitter stuff. I mean, it's a bad user experience in some cases when those things break down. Recently, this week, links weren't posting into Twitter. You couldn't follow links from Twitter.
Oh, wow.
The feeds wouldn't update correctly. So all of this weird stuff was going on. It was a negative experience for users.
Yep.
That type of thing makes them not want to use your app. So I mean, that's Twitter. That's one of the biggest social media platforms out there. What if
Yep.
you are not one of the largest and you
Right.
don't own your space? You have much more competition out there. All it takes is one bad collection of user experiences to
Yep.
really throw your app
Right.
and throw the usage of your app into the trash.
Right. Yep, exactly. That and greater reliability, right? I mean, a lot of these kind of intermingle, imagine you're not paying attention and, people are trying to go to your website and your website's down. Or people are trying to download your app, and as soon as it opens, it crashes, right? If you're not taking a look at, crash reports and usage metrics, you're not even realizing, right? You could have already had it on your phone, and you're like, well, there's nothing wrong with it, right? And then all of a sudden you're realizing that, we've had no new signups this week. What's going on? We had 1,000 a week for the past 3 months. Something's clearly going on.
When I download a new app, I usually give it 2 chances when those crash things happen. So if it crashes the first time and I open it back up and it crashes the second time, I'm done looking at that app. I'm uninstalling it, whatever. I mean, you had your chance, and that's directly related to
And
making sure your product is reliable.
And we know how easy it is to get in and see those metrics, and for it to be crashing and no one really even paying attention to that,
Right.
and fixing it immediately is likely not a good thing. Risks of ignoring software maintenance, that's
think we talked about that pretty well already.
Yeah, for sure. Security vulnerabilities, that's a big one. That's like obviously top on the list. Data loss, that's a big thing. Outdated, insufficient systems, right? I mean, you're getting left behind in your competitive market if you're not paying attention to what's going on and, staying with some type of technology that isn't the best technology, or you've hitched a wagon to another system and your software system connects with that system, and that system has become outdated, and your market or your top competition has hitched their wagons to a different system that's more forward and more modern. You turn a blind eye to that. That's not a good thing, and that kind of leads into a negative brand image. Like Jason mentioned, like I'm gonna uninstall this app if it crashes twice on my phone. Imagine what he now thinks of that brand.
Yeah, and not only that, like I'm gonna trash on Twitter like every single opportunity that I get. But like Twitter in the last 2 months has really garnered this reputation for not being as reliable as it once was, for how important Twitter is to the wider worldwide connection system. So it's like we're going to be a year down the line, and Twitter might like get a new CEO, be all fixed up, and be perfectly fine and not operating great. And I'm going to be here on next year's episode saying, hey, remember that time that Twitter crashed and wouldn't let people post links? Yeah. I'm going to remember that as a user who uses Twitter a lot. And that's going to make me like, I'm definitely never going to get Twitter Blue, because why would I pay for something that's going to have these types of inconsistencies?
Yeah.
Right?
Do they have those inconsistencies on Twitter Blue? Maybe
maybe that's
probably their way to get people to Twitter Blue.
But everybody who is complaining had Twitter Blue.
Oh.
Like everybody was complaining about it when it was happening. So, but maybe that's like next week they're going to come after they announce their $45,000 per month base API access. Yeah. Which is not, like, I'm not exaggerating that's what the proposed lower level tier of the API cost is going to be, $45,000 per month.
Seems legit.
Yeah. I'm going to be taking the company card to.
Let's get 3 accounts.
I don't even know where I'm going with this topic now. We've just like diverted to trashing on Twitter.
But imagine if there wasn't a team at Twitter, regardless of what we think of Twitter. Imagine if there wasn't a team at Twitter that was, on top of these issues. Yeah. Like you couldn't post links, but after a short period of time, you were then able to post links again.
Right, it was fixed pretty quick from my recollection.
Right, but imagine if, there wasn't a team there maintaining Twitter, all of a sudden the entire world couldn't post links.
Paying attention to people saying that they couldn't do those things, and looking at logs and crash reports and stuff like that. So that's why it's super important. Don't be like Twitter.
Right. So let's talk about keeping your software up to date with latest technologies, because that's really what we see a lot of, especially when it comes to like no code tools. If we're ripping on companies, say if we rip on WordPress here for a little bit.
Moonello is that brand that just makes fun of all the other brands. Great. How's our reputation, guys and gals and people?
WordPress is certainly a good tool. Like let's not say that they're not a good tool.
A huge portion of the internet is built on WordPress or with web.
I think it's just over 60%. 60% of the internet runs on WordPress.
It's kind of big.
Which is largely why it becomes the most attacked platform.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point. But I mean, WordPress is infamous for needing, the whole point of WordPress is you can expand its functionality with plugins that are made by other designers and other developers, and they do really cool things: social icons, checkout screens, entire web builders, feeds, your Instagram feed or your Twitter feed,
photo galleries,
stuff like that. Lots of things that you can do with it.
But it has an underlying theme,
right?
Which is like the foundation, and then you stack on plugins on top of that theme.
And that's infamous for being very overwhelming, because there's no there's an automatic updater that you can click in the design, but like if you don't have someone really paying attention to those things, you can miss updates very, very easily. Especially if you've got dozens to hundreds of plugins on your site. You miss one of them, and that one is the one that got, that let some not so great entity get a hold of your whole database, your whole SQL stuff, which is all of the data, all your customer data, all of your secrets, So so WordPress.
It's tough. It is a good platform, but WordPress itself does require not necessarily like white glove treatment, but it certainly requires people to get in there, people to know their username and password, to get into their own WordPress website, to get in there and update plugins. The theme also will get an update from the creator of the theme. When those themes get updated and those become available, those need to be updated. WordPress itself, the platform itself, receives periodic updates.
And then even like the systems that WordPress uses gets updates every now and then. So PHP itself or MySQL gets up some sort of can get updates, and then you've got to update that manually usually in your hosting. Whatever your hosting service is, your hosting provider. I've had that happen before. That's gross. One time a company started charging me because I had an older version of PHP that wasn't maintained anymore.
Oh, wow.
So I started getting like this monthly surcharge for maintaining an old PHP environment.
Seems like good customer service.
It just appeared on my contract once. And me being the great lazy person I am, I ignored it for like a couple of months and paid that whatever it was.
$40 later, you're like,
it's like, I should probably look into this. And all it was just clicking buttons and, moving from 4 to 5 or whatever it was. It's just easy as that, just paying attention to it.
Right.
So kind of on that line of no-code platforms, there's also situations where features can change within one of your platforms that you're using. So like the example that we have here is Zapier or if this, then that. With if this, then that, which is kind of like, that. Where those are services that can integrate two different unrelated platforms and kind of run logic on them. If this, then that. If this, then do that. So those integrations, like when those companies, especially if this then that first came out, like all of that was free for the most part. But then eventually they built that into a plan that you could purchase where some of those integrations or some of those features of those integrations would be paid. So suddenly all of these little widgets that you had going on that might be feeding you important information to your email or feeding your customer list in Trello or something like that wouldn't work anymore because you weren't on a paid tier. If you're not paying attention to those things, like how long would it take you to notice that those things are happening, especially if they're like off the cuff every once in a while processes, but are still important. That can be a bad thing for your business.
Yeah, and especially when we get into talking custom software development, right? Custom software, a good chunk of what we do, when we're building apps, right? There's a lot of they're not really necessarily called plugins, but they're more or less like little tiny packages that come from either NPM Node Package Manager or Yarn, right? And those, just like we talked about plugins and WordPress needing updates, right? These NPM and Yarn packages also need updates as new vulnerabilities gets discovered and updates those packages.
Especially in systems that have very frequent builds. Like obviously there are some systems where you build the software and then you're not really going to build there's not going to be another build for a while.
Like a phone formatter. Someone types in a phone number into a text field and you format it to have like the parentheses and the hyphens and all that.
But a statically generated website, on the other hand, using something like Gatsby and Netlify, like that's going to build every time a major change happens to your content model, and that every time that build happens, it is building, like downloading all of these packages and building them all together, and those packages can update and break functionality. So
and then talking about API connections, so from a low code standpoint and a custom software standpoint, right? There's APIs that get connected to latch on to external data sources, right? And APIs will sometimes go through iterations where they become a completely different platform, or a chunk of the API moves to a different API, and all of a sudden those API calls that your app is making to get a specific piece of data breaks and no longer is available, and it needs to be calling this other app over here or this other API over here to get that data. Now, most companies, right, they'll provide 18 months worth of, hey, we're making a change, don't forget to implement it. So we always stay on top of those. But if you're not paying attention, or if that email that you're receiving is going into some like IT software general inbox, right, that you're not,
the guy who's maintained that no longer works at your company, guy gal person,
right,
you might never know that was going to be a change. And it could be something as simple as just like a variable name has changed that breaks your entire app.
Right.
Name to last name. Right.
And we have a couple large, custom software applications that connect to some pretty large, widely used systems like Toast, the Toast API POS system.
Very in-depth,
huge,
complex system.
Lots going on to it. They, their developer team puts out, updates to their API weekly. And as they make changes that get deprecated, they actually reach out to all the different custom teams or custom integration teams that have built things, one-on-one, letting them know, hey, based on your, what you're doing in your software app, we suggest you make, these couple tweaks. And then Gusty is another one, the short-term rental, property maintenance listing platform.
Yeah, they're kind of wide, like in their description of that.
Yeah,
it's very interesting. But they just recently deprecated the version of the API that we were using for one of our clients, and moved to like an open API and then a custom booking engine API for them. So while that deprecated API still works, it's not going to be forever, right? So we needed to actually implement and start to implement the new APIs, the open APIs, so we could have their stuff still work.
Right. Because imagine, their customers out there trying to book at one of their short-term rentals, and all of a sudden their listings are no longer showing up in the app. Like, that's a major problem. Your business basically comes to a standing halt. And oh, by the way, we realize that there's this problem, and there's this problem, and all of a sudden you now have to figure out what the fix is, implement the fix, all the while your business is stopped.
Yeah.
Right, so there's just major problems of like not keeping up and staying up to date with latest technology.
Quick side note: all those API changes are due to those companies performing maintenance on their apps. That's an example of a company using those practices of maintenance to improve their product.
Major domino effect. Yeah. Absolutely. So let's talk about some strategies to ensure software continues to meet business needs, right? Because we are talking to business owners and those involved in a business that help it run smoothly. So let's talk about some things that can help ensure that things are running good, right? And for sure, you definitely want to be thinking about running audits. Of course, you want to implement your systems with some type of monitoring, with some type of, as this thing's running, let me know how things are going, enable alerts when you can. Certainly don't want to just like deploy something and then, let's figure out how we're now going to track things, right? In the simplest form, right? There's Google Analytics, right? That's, absolute bare bones. That's just what's going on the site. How are people using it? What are keywords they're using? But really, we're getting into more of the, the back end, is the website running?
Yeah.
Are there any type of problems with it?
AWS CloudWatch.
Right.
Type things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those are certainly all important, right? Running your audits. So like identifying the software that you actually want to run the audits on, right? That's a big deal, right? You've got probably public websites where, having your hosting hook up some type of CloudWatch and then maybe hooking up some Google Analytics on it, maybe that's fine. But then if you've got a mobile app or an internal business tool, like you're going to want to know 24/7 what that thing's doing.
Mm-hmm.
What's the uptime? What are the metrics? Like, are we hitting our KPIs? Is everything running right? And, thinking about running your audit, you want to think about gathering some type of information. What kind of data can you extract? right? It's one thing to look at a crash report, but then it's another to realize, oh, it's on this specific screen when it's crashing. Okay, cool.
And that's data you can get from those crash reports instead of waiting for a user of that software to report it and tell you their experience. Like you could already know it and be close to the solution before getting the person who has experienced the problem actually coming to you. And that's probably the smartest way of taking care of it, is trying to get it done before somebody brings it to your attention.
Right. Of course, reviewing licenses and certificates. So if you've got some type of license to use some type of software or some type of font or some type of image or some type of music file, right, on your software application, you're definitely going to want to be reviewing how long you're allowed to use those for.
Nobody likes to get sued.
Nobody likes to get sued.
Or affected by a bounty program or something like that.
Nope. We'll go ahead and we'll make a left-hand turn at that point.
Yeah.
Interviewing users, right? So of course you're going to want to hear from the people that are using your system, your software, whether they're employees at your company or the public. Interview people, talk to them, bring them in, have a focus group. Set them up in controlled settings and record the screen so that your whole team can see it some other time. Or you can always come back.
Yeah, that's probably the beyond tracking metrics on your app to make sure that it's like crash reports and stuff like that. That's probably the biggest way that you're going to find problems or pain points with your app, because it's one thing to speaking as a developer, it's one thing to develop a program and like you start to know its kinks and the little things that should be worked. Like if I click this button, sometimes I need to wait like an extra second before I can start doing other things. A user is not going to know that. And maybe because you are so tied into the project that those little, I don't know, idiosyncrasies, is that the word for it? But those little like quirks, those little things that happen to it that you don't really pick up on them when they become a major problem. And if you're not asking your users or listening to your users when you do that, you're not going to discover those things. And that goes full circle back to brand identity and like the bottom line of are people going to continue using your app if they continue to have these problems that you are obviously not addressing?
Right. Yep. Yeah, and you and your team might think that people are going to use your app in one way, and then all of a sudden you get it out there and you realize, out of 100,000 people, 90,000 people are using it in a different way than you thought.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, oh man, like we didn't have a large enough focus group, or man, we need to tweak some things here and get this thing figured out.
Kind of related to this, but like the video game Fortnite, right? And I'm going somewhere real with this.
All right.
Fortnite.
Should I strap in?
No, it won't take too long. But Fortnite didn't start out as the game that it is right now. It started out as like this co-op person versus environment builder type of game where you would run around and like survive zombies or something like that. It was never a battle royale. It was never like a person versus person in a big old, ring trying to survive and build up and shoot other people. It wasn't until the developers were kind of like noticed that people were doing that with their game or wanting to do that they pivoted from that person versus environment game to the person versus person game that we see now is one of the biggest video games of all time. That did not happen without the developers paying attention to what their users were doing and implementing the feedback that their users were giving them about that. So I don't know. I thought that correlated like almost exactly with what you were saying.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And if Fortnite wasn't paying attention, or pushing their agenda, right?
A huge industry probably wouldn't have been as pivotal as it was. You wouldn't have I'm going down a rabbit hole with this, but popular streamers like Ninja, they got popular from playing Fortnite, not anything else. And maybe there would have been another game out there that did that, but like those big industries, those big esports industries might not be as big as they were without that type of a game making the viewing of gaming so popular.
Right. Yeah, I think of like all the NHLPA, like 95, right? Those games that you've been in, like every year, it would just come out the next year and just iterate and get better and just get better and just get better. And every year it was like a NHLPA 98 and NHLPA 99, and it just kept,
There must be something about those games that's changing that makes it so that people can still play it. Yeah. With it being a similar enough game, but being different enough that like it's worth buying, the next 22 year, and 23 and 24.
Of course, yeah. And then analyzing usage and analytics around performance, right? That's huge, right? If you're not weekly looking at your analytics reports and then realizing performance, right, you're not doing your user base, or even if you have a e-commerce store, right? That's a problem if you're not realizing that your checkout screen takes 5 seconds to load. It's huge. Walmart's put out a lot of studies. Amazon has put out a lot of studies on microseconds of speed increases revenue by like 2 commas in the revenue statement. So it's huge to look at performance, but you got to be looking at it. You got to be knowing. You got to be realizing. You got to be in it to know what's going on. Evaluating security and vulnerabilities. We talked about that quite a bit, and identifying redundancies and inefficiencies. If you've got got a couple plugins on your site that are basically doing the exact same thing, right? Or you have 2 installed that are doing the exact same thing, but you're really only utilizing one. Blow the other one out of there. Get rid of it.
That's a potential vulnerability.
Yep, get it out of there. If you've got, in custom software, if you've got extra NPM packages or yarn packages that are part of your code base, and you're not using them, get them out of there. Really streamline and get these things down to, not needed. If your app is making API calls out to a system that you're not really using any of that data for anyways, or if you're making, 17 API calls out to a system for data, can you streamline that down to 5, right? Like that's another, big deal. And obviously, developing a plan for improvement. It's great to like analyze and have your hand on the pulse and like really, or your finger on the pulse, or your toe on the pulse. Which one is it?
Probably finger.
Finger?
I don't know why you'd put your toe on a pulse.
I don't know. Depends.
About tangents.
Maybe if you didn't have hands, I don't know.
Let's go ask Best Buy.
Yeah. Developing a plan. Like you definitely got to have a plan. You're gathering all this wonderful data. You get your finger on the pulse. Develop a plan forward. Like implement these changes. We're realizing our app is crashing on a specific screen. Get that into a sprint. Get that fixed. Get that deployed. Make your fan base happy.
Nothing endears a fan base like being listened to.
Nope. And implement and monitor. Pay attention. Have your hand, nose, toe, and finger on the pulse as much as you can. And then continuous improvement and iterations, right? So running the agile methodologies, just like even if you just have like a simple WordPress site, like put 20 minutes on your calendar every other Thursday to duck in and check things out and sign in and make sure everything's running fine, right? Like as simple as that. Of course,
that there's no little numbers next to your updates. Side panel.
Right. If there are, do them. Right. If you're running a large app, right, just go. You obviously would likely have some type of a dashboard to go log into and see statistics and see real-time metric reporting and ask questions and just say, hey, what is this? What's going on here? Is this good? Is this bad? Look at things from a weekly standpoint and see how things are going.
Cool. Well, that was a lot. That was a lot of stuff that we had talked about.
See, maintenance is cool.
Maintenance can be cool.
Yeah.
Kids, don't let the cool people tell you that maintenance can't be cool, because we're the cool kids now.
Optimizations.
Optimizations.
We don't maintain, we optimize.
We have spent this entire thing saying maintenance, and now we're going to start saying optimize.
Yep.
Okay. So today we talked about the importance of software optimizations. Yes. And it's like taking care of your car, right?
Yeah.
That's what we had said.
And your furnace, like when you swap out the air filter, put the new one in?
Yeah. So my wife is going to watch this and or listen to this at some point, and she's going to be like, that thing that he never does! After I ask him to do it 50 million times.
It needs to be changed.
I love you, Sarah, and I'm sorry that I don't change the filter enough.
Awesome. Next episode?
Another
fun topic.
UX.
And the importance of UX in software development.
I do like UX.
Yep.
I think that's going to be a fun one.
Yep, it will be. We'll make it fun.
Cool.
Always. Awesome. Thank you.